this is not a book that I wrote to bash evangelicals. It is a critique of evangelicalism, the culture, from the inside of that culture, having lived it myself. I know many evangelicals, from my past, from my relationships. There are many, many good people throughout the country who go to church and have these religious views. I think the main argument of my book is that evangelical culture, evangelicalism, has not trained the people in that movement in a few things. One would be loving God with all their mind, and the other would be loving our neighbor as ourselves.
You also, there was this part of the book that really jumped out to me where you write, quote, Trump worshipped himself and he was teaching other Christians to do the same. I wonder to what extent have his followers, other GOP leaders, adopted Trump's vision, the version of Christianity that he was selling voters?
I mean, one of the things about Trump and Trumpism is that it was the culmination of many decades of a type of political engagement from the religious right, which was much more interested in having an antagonistic stance towards politics and towards culture in general, rather than having more of a stakeholder attitude, which comes to the table, even if evangelicals have been a dominant group, the common good conversation that most constituencies have at the table was not one that evangelicals have largely been interested in participating in. And so there was more of a sense of trying to dominate and dictate rather than participate, collaborate, and work with others for that common good.
I want to read more from your book. One of the passages that I loved. You write, quote, some in my family also exhibited a desire to blow up everything in our government and politics out of some nebulous mix of fear and rage. Usually this related to their belief that it was wrong to be gay or that there was something off about transgender people. They were also outraged by the sense that discussing systemic racism was a way to label all white people as racist. Connect the dots, because this is the thing, right? You were both grappling with your personal experience of your family, and then you're out in the field actually reporting, talking to voters, talking to people in power. Connect the dots from what you heard from your own family to what you see from Republicans today.
Well, I write in the book about how I think a lot of my upbringing was framed around fear and staying away from people who didn't think like us. And when you don't have a lot of contact with people who think differently or believe differently, a lot of times your ideas about them can become exaggerated, and your fears can become larger than life. Literally. And so I don't minimize the concerns or the views that religious conservatives have on some of these social and culture war issues. I do think they are often exaggerated by people who are trying to raise money or raise their profile by scaring people into supporting them. But I don't minimize the concern. I think my view all along has been that even if all of our concerns on the right are as bad as we think they are, I don't think that the role of faith is to cause us to try to, beat up the other side. It's to stand on principle, advocate for your interests, absolutely, but also accept the results of the democratic system after having done that.